Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at silver. It is time for another update. We will also be taking a look at gold as well as always. And only now do I actually believe we have a stronger chance, a more substantial chance of having a more substantial bottom within this red correction we have been tracking, since we have actually failed to generate, to follow, let's say, either expectation to higher prices clearly. And of course, it is still possible to extend even lower. We don't make predictions here, we rather track the most probable path based on price action, and we are looking for evidence that the bottom would be in. And of course, I will provide the relevant levels of resistance to watch for such evidence today. But before we do that, let's provide some context for this chart because it is quite important. So, on the larger time frame, we have been tracking this as a potentially larger wave tree within the area of a diagonal pattern. In this wave tree, we are looking to build an A, B, C structure, and within the wave C of the wave tree, we are building an ending diagonal. We have been considering on this chart an impulse to be a possibility, but we have broken the relevant levels of support internally that would have allowed this, for example, to be the wave tree. So now we are pacing our expectations, looking only for an A, B, C pattern within this wave 5 in white. I will mention, theoretically, it may still be possible for this chart to be building an impulse, but I do not really trust that interpretation at this point. I would much rather be on the safer side and have the expectation that this would be building a 3-wave move to the upside, sure, to new all-time highs, but only in 3 waves at this point. In the smaller time frame, I have been looking for this to ideally be the wave 4 bottom. I actually do not want a reset within this wave 4. I am perfectly satisfied on this chart with what has been done. We have initially been looking for lower, but we have broken above the relevant levels of resistance. And I'm also quite happy with the correction we have had on the gold chart as well, where we have formed even a more clear confirmation that a more substantial bottom would be in within the larger wave 4. Now, in this movement to the upside, we have been looking for a couple of paths for the wave A in white, because a wave A can be a 3-wave pattern, but it can also be a 5-wave pattern. And since within the first movement to the upside, we could only reliably track 3 waves, we had to make the thoughtful consideration that this movement, this green interpretation, would be no impulse. Clearly, we cannot assume the wave 3 to have actually started. We have given a chance this idea of an A, B, C structure to be in formation, but we have already broken the relevant levels of support for a wave B a couple of times now. And I would feel much more comfortable, much more confident in tracking a bottom to be in place here, in tracking this red interpretation actually, where either this would be a wave B, or this would be a wave 2 in the green interpretation. Frankly, it doesn't matter too much at this point. I am looking for the reversal. I am looking for some signals that the bottom is in. I'm not too concerned on how this development to the upside will continue once we form the reversal. And at this point, based on the pattern we have within this entire structure, in this entire correction, we would have to account for it being a running flat. And this is just fancy Elliott Wave language for having a higher low within this as a supposed wave C in red. Not really a problem, doesn't have any strong implication. We have been mentioning this in the previous video as well, where even in the area of a running flat, we would have expected to at least reach the 38.2% retracement. And what do we have here? Well, within the first more singular move down, we can see we have found support at this level. We have gotten a bounce. It didn't hold, but we did manage to push once again into these levels, a few times actually, and we found support each and every single time. We are now looking to extend to even higher prices. So it seems favorable at this point that this support zone we are tracking, that is in yellow but actually can apply for both green and yellow interpretations. We can track it in white. But this support zone would allow us to still expect a reversal. Now the question is whether a bottom is actually in, and this is where I come in and tell you that We do not have the evidence yet that we need to see some levels of resistance broken. We need to see some larger 5-wave pattern for such a confirmation maybe. And I can even tell you that within this wave C, an impulse is a possibility. We could see several additional lows within this structure before a more substantial bottom would be in place. If you remember, in the previous video we have only been looking for a very internal wave tree to be extending to lower prices. But I will give you an even better outlook for now, because I could consider this to be something like a 1-2, and then within the wave 3 I could have something like a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This means that after a wave 4 and a wave 5, I would have a more clearly complete structure that I can track here. An internal 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, where right now we would be within a supposed wave 4. I do caution you that very easily this could extend even further than this. And while I can track a structure to be complete within this movement to the downside in the area of a diagonal pattern, it is not necessary. And for a signal that a more substantial bottom would be in, I would need it to break above the 50% retracement. I would need it to break above $80.90 for a signal that this red wave C is not going to extend even lower. So far, we have pushed into the first level of resistance, which is really the minimum expectations of such a wave 4 correction. But unless we manage to get through the last one, we have to consider the large pressure of forming one additional low. We have to consider that quite possibly this would be a 3-wave move to the upside into resistance, and the wave 5 would possibly be already ongoing. I actually do not need any further highs, and honestly, I'm not even tracking the internal structure too much. I am merely watching the levels of resistance I would need to see broken for a signal that this move to the downside would be complete. This is, in my opinion, the most relevant levels to track, based on the levels of resistance we have, the 23.6% retracement being the first level that created this larger rejection, then the 38.2% retracement being in line with structural resistance at this previous high. Well, this is telling me that likely this is the correct path to follow. Once again, it is possible to extend even lower, but we will not get too much into that. We will take it level by level. So let's take a look at the gold chart now, where I actually have similar expectations. And on this chart, we have been looking for this wave C quite clearly, because we've had a wave A down. We can actually track this even as a 5-wave pattern. And since we have failed to hold the internal levels of support for this to be something like a 1-2 setup, we have been looking to build most likely a wave C in this move down. In this correction, we've had only 3 waves down in the previous video, and it seems we have formed another low since. I cannot tell exactly how this structure would be fitting best. It's not the most clear movement down, but I believe it most relevant at this point to be tracking an impulse. And that is to identify the levels of resistance for continuation to lower prices, because I still believe it possible for the wave 2 to have topped here, to have this as an A, B, C pattern within the wave 3, and something like an A, B, C pattern within the wave 5. Yeah? A bottom could be in on the gold chart as well, but it is not necessary. I can very easily be looking at this to have been an extension of a wave 3, in which case this would be an impulse, right? I can track the wave 5 even as a 5-wave pattern in something like a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I can look for a larger wave 4 correction at the levels between $4,517 up to the 50% retracement only at $4,588. And I actually didn't even check this before I started recording this video, but we have just gotten rejected at a 38.2% retracement, which is typically the ideal target for wave 4, after forming a 3-wave move to the upside. I will tell you though that if this is the wave 2 top, I probably have to expect a larger wave 4 correction, that quite likely we would need to be extending even more. But I do not actually need to consider this to have been the wave 2 top. I was just considering the structure would fit better if I consider the wave 2 top to be here, but I can actually track this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and it is all perfectly acceptable, in which case a wave 2 top here would be a pretty appropriate match with what I would already have in place within a wave 4 on this chart. And I understand it may seem a bit flaky, a bit unreliable how we can make different considerations for this structure, but it is actually within such a small time frame that we have to really give room for distortions to be a lot more available here. We have to be prepared for the scenario and instead focus on the levels of resistance. I would have in this case to maybe allow a slightly higher area of resistance, but it's not a large difference. It only moved up by $4 at the 50% retracement. So on this chart, I'm still looking for lower prices as well potentially, but once again, it is not necessary. If we are to push lower, the ideal target for the wave C would be the 100% extension of the wave A. But I will mention that we don't actually need to get there. We have already achieved the 78.6% extension here. We have actually bounced off this level a couple of times. And we don't actually need to reach the ideal target, but it is a level the wave C is drawn towards. And for now, we will stop here. These are the levels. This is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and if you enjoyed the content and want to support it directly, check out the channel membership, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.